The economic fallout from the pandemic has led to a severe housing problem for many renters and even some property owners. So far, there has been some relief from the moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, which is due to expire on August 18th. Other forms of help were available. From Metro Housing Boston to tell us about these is the agency's deputy director, Sue Nohl. Thank you very much for being with us, Sue.
Thanks for having me.
I'm curious, before we even describe these programs that you're helping with, how many people are asking you for help these days?
So we at Metro Housing provide a variety of assistance. We have a number of households that are receiving ongoing rental assistance from us. And then we work with folks who may not have ongoing assistance, but have a need because of a crisis. So typically we serve, a high number of folks in any given year. But over the last 3 months, we have seen at least tripling of the number of folks who aren't receiving regular assistance from us, who are reaching out because they're struggling and they're looking for any resource we can provide them, whether that be financial or referrals to other resources that might help them.
Well, you have these programs that have been out there helping people all along. I'm going to take them one at a time here because you have one that I think is mainly targeted at families in transition of some kind. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. So that's the Residential Assistance for Families in Transition program, commonly referred to as RAFT. And that program is a state-funded program funded through the Mass State budget process that Metro's administered since the early 2000s. Over the years, it's really been used to help whatever crisis we may be facing within the Commonwealth at that time, but has historically been targeted for families who are at or below 50% of the area median income, who have a housing crisis. Either they're facing eviction or they need to relocate from the housing that they're in for safer or more appropriate housing, or they're homeless and they're moving out of their homeless situation into their first apartment. Over the last few months since the crisis started, the majority of the families that we've been assisting with RAFT have been families who are behind in their rent. Obviously, the crisis has impacted people's employment, and many folks found themselves in a situation where they were falling behind in their rent. So the RAFT program, the governor increased the funding for the RAFT program, back in April, that allowed us to have more funds. Typically, we run out of our normal allocation around April or May. So having the kind of typical runoff coinciding with the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, required the state to put more funding into that. And we expended all of our additional funds. The governor added another $5 million statewide to that program. So our our funding that ended in the end of June was all expended. Fortunately, the governor has not only given us the same amount of funds as last year, but has actually tripled the amount of money that's available by adding in a new program called IRMA, the Emergency Rent and Mortgage Assistance Program. So between the two of those programs, we are able to help households that have incomes up to 80% of the area median income, which is definitely an improvement because folks are struggling even at the higher incomes above 50%, and it gives us more funding to help more people. Since we started accepting applications for that program July 1st, we've received over 1,000 applications in the first 2 weeks.
Now, I know income levels are important for eligibility in both of these programs, but as you and I probably know pretty well, a lot of people have seen their income levels drop quite a bit very recently. So people might be thinking, last year I was middle class, this year I'm poverty. So what does that mean as far as eligibility?
So we use the HUD published area median income guidelines that are available. Those are available on our website, and because everybody's in a different household size and different levels, I don't want to spend a lot of time getting into the specific numbers, but what folks should do is go to our website, which is metrohousingboston.org. There is a page dedicated to information about how we can help during COVID-19. It will give folks the eligibility guidelines for the rental assistance for families in transition, or the IRMA, the Emergency Rental Mortgage Assistance Program. We have an online application process, so folks don't have to call, schedule an appointment, get an application. Folks can just go online and fill out an application. If anybody has concerns about doing it that way, we certainly can help them other ways. So we have staff who will, be available to help if folks don't have a comfort level on the computer. But we found that a lot of folks, with everything going on, really wanted to find the quickest way to get us their information. So it's an online application. They can upload their documents. It's taken us about 2 weeks right now, given the current numbers, to be able to process the applications and be back in touch with folks. In some cases, it's quicker. In some cases, it is hitting that 2 weeks. But our goal is to help get information out to as many people as we can. So folks should definitely check out there. And different income, one of the challenges has been, I think, for many folks, is that they are eligible for unemployment. They're currently receiving the additional federal unemployment funds that are available, that are scheduled to end later this month. So for many folks, they reached out and they may not have been eligible initially under the old RAF program because of that additional $600. But with the combination of the increase in the income limits and that benefit likely stopping, we're encouraging folks, if you're not sure if you're income eligible, reach out to us and we will work with you and let you know. We'll do an assessment. We'll be able to look at your income and let you know if you are eligible.
One thing I was reminded of when I looked at your website is that there are renters in I guess, public housing who've been paying part of the rent with their own income. And since their income might have changed lately, before they come to you, maybe they should call their local housing authority to see if they can have that rent contribution adjusted.
Absolutely. For anybody that's receiving any form of subsidized housing, whether that be they're living in public housing or they're receiving a voucher from either Metro Housing or any of the local housing authorities that administer voucher programs, anybody in that situation who has had a change of income should contact their housing administrator immediately, report the change, and in almost every case, if the reduction in income is related to the crisis, a loss of job, a reduction in hours, a need to take a leave because you don't have anybody to watch your kids, those situations are being addressed at the housing authority level. In our other programs on our leased housing side, we're processing, we've seen an increase in the number of folks who are reporting to us changes in income, and we're changing their tenant share. So the housing authorities are taking on that additional cost, which actually works out well because that leaves more of the RAFT funds and the IRMA funds available for folks who do not have a subsidy and may not have the benefit of having their rent adjusted.
Well, in normal times, people taking advantage of programs would have to come up with some documentation. That's more difficult these days. So how are you taking that into account?
So we recognize that, and we do recognize that we're very paperwork driven, and oftentimes folks see us as somewhat bureaucratic, and sometimes that's because of the regulations we have to follow. We've worked very closely with the state in terms of how to make the programs more accessible to folks during this time. So the application for RAP, which used to be 16 pages and require 6 signatures, has been modified and it's down to like 4 or 5 pages. And again, now available online and not on paper. We do need some documentation, but we do have a lot of flexibility to work individually with applicants as to if they're not able to produce a letter from their employer because their place of business went out of business, we can do self-certifications. There's other documents we can work with. So again, it's not a one size fits all. Like, historically programs in normal times or in the old normal, we would have a very strict list of documents. Now we really are working with applicants, as their situation presents. we're no longer requiring documentation for every household member. We need information on the head of household. You know, we do need the owner information because we need to be able to pay the owner, but most of the owners have been fantastic to work with us. They understand, you know, we're doing a lot of outreach with our owners saying, if you have a tenant who's struggling to pay their rent, please have them call us. And many of them are getting that information out to their tenants because we recognize that the tenants have a place to call home because the owners are able to provide that to them. And if the owners aren't getting funding, then it puts their ownership of that unit at risk. So we really are trying to be very holistic in our approach. So again, trying to be as flexible as we can. And that's why an applicant who may not have everything that they think they need should still reach out to us. And we'll work through those. There are going to be some things that we are required to get. We will need some proof that you are who you say you are. But again, we're not looking for birth certificates, social security cards for every household member or documents on every household member.
Well, finally, Sue, I know there are more details. So if people want to find them online, what's the best way to get there?
So it's metrohousingboston.org is our website. And on when you get to the homepage of the website, there is a banner at the top that talks about COVID-19. If you're impacted by COVID-19, click there and it should get you the information about our financial assistance programs and how to reach out to us if you just need some information. We have a team that works in what we call our resource line, where folks who may not know what they need but know that they're struggling reach out, and staff are responding to those inquiries and really trying to help folks get the right information for their specific situation. That email address is also available on our website.